Hi, everyone. This is Mihaela with Hey Stella podcast and also my YouTube channel, which I want to encourage everybody to go to as I am very in the beginning of reviving it. So please go to YouTube, Mihaela Mikhut, Art of Experiencing. The reason why I call it the Art of Experiencing is because, as you know, the Actor Studio, when it was founded 75 years ago, almost. I believe next year it's going to be exactly 75 years ago because it was founded in 1947 by Ilya Kazan and some other people that I can think of. But a few years later, Lee Strasberg came into the picture and he was asked to be the artistic director of it. On top of the fact that the Actor Studio is going to celebrate 75 years since it was founded, I couldn't help but just think about where does the Actor Studio, where does the method come from? And of course, it comes from the Stanislavski System, the Russian director, actor Konstantin Stanislavski, who had come up with the first written manual for actors, later known as the system. I looked it up to see when he was working on it, and that is about 100 years ago. 100 years ago, almost, Stanislavski came up with the system. 75 years ago, almost, Strasberg came up with the method, which is an adaptation from the system of Stanislavski for the American actors at the Actor Studio. And that's where the craft of acting became known as the art of experiencing, because it has to do with people living real feelings on stage as actors, portraying the characters that they are portraying. So they're not pretending to feel feelings, they're living real feelings in the circumstances of the character. There's so many questions about what is the difference between the system, what is the difference between method. And I don't think that if you really dissect, I think that if you really go into it in depth, you will see that there are no differences. The approaches might be different in the way that they ask you to work towards realizing that, which I just said, to be able to live in the given circumstances and experience them, not just pretend them, as many people seem to still believe in today's times, that you pretend as an actor, you pretend. You don't pretend, you live, you are putting yourself with all that you've got into those circumstances of the characters. No matter which way you want to go about it, no matter which way, which tools or exercises you want to try, for as long as you get to that objective, for as long as you get to that goal. I spoke, I'll take that back. No, I didn't speak. As you will know, even now, excuse me, as I am doing this, knowing that I'm being live and there are people watching, there's an audience, I am still aware of the way that I comport myself. I am still aware of the things that myself as a person, as an actress, I also act sometimes, but my main job is teaching acting. Because the actress is still in me, I am aware at all times of the things that I know I have to pay attention to, such as usually sometimes, most of the times, when I am very nervous and I'm trying to be perfect because I know there are people watching, I will stop and I will think of the next thing that I want to say. And if I'm not aware of it, I will go, um, uh, if you watch any people, if you give yourself that task to observe people, even on television, professionals, but regular people, when I say regular people, I don't mean regular in a bad way. I mean people who are not actors, who are not in front of cameras. We have a tendency to let that the reason why we're doing that is because we are not comfortable to be in the silence. It is very uncomfortable for people to stay in silence, because I think our understanding is that we have to entertain even when we are speaking to another person in a personal event, in everyday life, or to more people in a group. We feel like we're not enough if we don't keep talking. So those silences and those pauses without the sound makes us feel like we're not sufficient to give ourselves the break to say absolutely nothing and to just be. Being in silence, being without, I'm here, watch me. Am I good enough to be in your presence? Am I entertaining you? Am I funny enough? Can I be the entertainer in the group? Your intention is to do that when your thought process is that you don't have yet something to say for the next, in the next segment of your event. Then we go to and I watch so many people on television who are professionals, consider themselves professional, and I always wonder if they have somebody telling them that they're doing that. I know that I work with people and I always have to remind them to pay attention to the observer part of who they are rather than the public speaker or the actor. Let the observer take a little bit of control in any situation, because see, now I made a mistake and I'm like really feeling bad that I made a mistake. I made a mistake and now I feel really bad, because we tend to be so harsh on ourselves. We tend to punish ourselves with allowing negative thoughts to come in our heads. Right now, I have the negative thoughts coming into my head, like, why couldn't you just speak without making a mistake in the way that you're pronouncing things? But then I have to put that to the side and say, it's okay, I'm a human being. So watch and count how many times you say, huh, uh, uh, and see if you pay attention to it, if you're able to adjust and not say it. It's very uncomfortable because we are so conditioned to do something in the way that we've been doing it for so many years, that unlearning that is so hard. It's so hard to get out of the comfort that we are so used to. Going back to the Actor Studio celebration of 75 years, then Stanislavski visiting the United States of America with the Moscow Art Theater in the early 1920s, almost 100 years ago. I spoke a little bit about, and I posted some videos on my YouTube channel. Again, go to my YouTube channel. I know I'm making a commercial for it, but please go to it because there's so many interesting stuff. It's not just about acting. It's about analysis from my point of view on people, events that are happening in everyday life. So it's about human behavior. It's about psychology transformed into human behavior, as Ilya Kazan, the great director, who was one of the founders of the Actor Studio, called the definition of acting to be. I lost my thought. What did I want to say? I'm going to take a break. It's okay. That's what I mean about the pause. I have to get used that it's okay that I don't know what to say immediately. Yes, I posted some videos about one of my rehearsal at the Actor Studio, on the sacred stage of the Actor Studio, during the rehearsal, not during session, because during session, when you have the other colleagues there watching, they don't allow filming in the theater. And a lot of people are asking about what is the difference between the Actor Studio and the school, the Actor Studio. And I hear this every time I travel somewhere, but even people in New York, even people in the United States who don't have anything to do with the Actor Studio, they seem to be confused. And I would be confused if I weren't a member for 25 years almost. The Actor Studio, the Actor Studio, the Actor Studio, the original Actor Studio, this is before James Lipton came up with the Inside the Actor Studio TV show they used to run on the Bravo channel, and became so known. So many people were watching it, not just artists and actors and directors, but it became so watched by so many people because early on, people realized that acting doesn't just have to do with actors. It has to do with human comportment, with human behavior, human psychology, like I said, transformed into behavior. So the actor studio, the original actor studio, was founded in 1947 in New York after people like Lee Strasberg and Ilya Kazan and some others that I can't think of right now, and it's okay that I can't think of right now, became aware. I'm not going to say that they were present to Stanislavski and his troupe of actors coming to New York in the 1920s, because I'm not sure, but they became aware of Stanislavski and the system and this new approach to acting, which demanded for the actors to assume responsibility and live an inner life of the characters that they were portraying. There was no longer acting that was devoted to exaggeration on stage or saying the line towards the audience, hello, my darling, even though they would be speaking to the other actor on stage, they were doing a scene on stage, they would tend to speak out. Everything was for the audience, to the audience. Stanislavski came and said, people should be talking to each other on stage, even if they have to turn their back to the audience, which was such a shock to so many people who happened to be in the audience when the Moscow Art Theater and Stanislavski were on Broadway. I know it was Chekhov for sure. But the first time that the American audiences were watching the Moscow Art Theater with Stanislavski on stage, the actors playing the characters were actually turning their back to the audiences because their other actor partner on stage was behind them. So instead of going with what acting used to be before, which was, oh, no matter the other actor that I'm having a scene with is behind me, I'm still going to talk to the audience. They said, what do we do in real life? If we are talking to the people in any kind of situation in real life, we tend to look to that person. Like right now, I'm talking to you. So I'm not going to be looking somewhere at the wall and do my speech there where the live audience would be. I would speak to you if I had another actor come in, and if that actor was here and I was demonstrating a scene between myself as an actor and the other actor, then I wouldn't pay so much attention to you, the spectators, the audience, right? I would be concentrating on the other person to be in the moment with that person, with that actor. So I can listen, and from what he gives me or she gives me, I take him in and then I respond justified by what I heard. So of course I have to pay attention to the other character. So I would turn away from you. If the other character in my scene was behind me, then of course I would have to turn my back and I would have to speak to that person, to that other character, to the actor. Yes, I'm doing okay. How are you doing? Isn't it wonderful that we're actually doing this beautiful thing here? And then the audience would still be there, and the audience would watch us have a real conversation on stage rather than speaking the line to the audience. That which I just explained also became known as a private moment. A private moment, which even now in the actor studio between the different members, there is a misunderstanding, or some people say the definition is one thing and other people say the definition is another thing. What I got from the private moment, that's some of the videos that I posted earlier this week on my YouTube channel, on Facebook and Instagram, were with the rehearsal that I did, where I was playing the character Elena Popova from The Bear by Chekhov, which so many people know. And I've seen it done in so many different ways, and none of them were credible. Because the first time that you look at the play and you read it, what pops out is that it's only 20 pages, what you see, the first impression. It's a 20-page long play, so it's a short play. And from the first read, it gives you the impression that it's farcical, that it's on the surface. There are only three characters, Elena, Smirnov, and Luca, the servant of the house. So everything happens between the main characters, Smirnov and Elena, so fast. They go from hating each other to loving each other, boom, in 20 pages. So because the emotional arc of those characters and the emotional journey of to go from one extreme to the other extreme in only 2 pages, people look at that play and they interpret it to mean that it's a farce, that it's farcical. How can anything happen so fast? For anything to happen so fast in their emotional journey, it must be that we have to look at it and do it in a superficial way. But if you really pay attention to what is between those lines in the 20 pages, you can find subtext that if you were to write it down, and I do encourage actors and directors to write down the subtext to whatever script they're working, which is everything that's not being said out loud by the characters. And that's what I had the privilege to do, as the Actor Studio gives you that opportunity to work not just on the written text, but to work beyond the written text. So when I started working with a colleague of mine, we realized that there's so much more underneath. So how are we going to discover what else is underneath if we don't try different exercises, different techniques that Stanislavski and then Strasberg came up with? Stanislavski's one exercise, the public solitude, is about creating something on stage for the character as a private moment, or public solitude, which later became known as the private moment in the method of Strasberg. The system became known as the method due to Strasberg's interpretation of the system and additional exercises that he came up with. The private moment, my understanding of the private moment, again, it has so many different kind of variations to the definition. But what it is, it's got to be something. You have to come up with a moment that will make sense to the story that you're portraying, to the character that you're portraying, but it's not necessarily written in the play. It's not necessarily written in the script. So I was looking at Elena Popova. The play begins with her giving us the understanding that her husband had passed, and she has decided that she wanted to respect and mourn him and not want to leave the house, even though Luca, the servant, is encouraging her to leave the house. She's going to show her husband on the other side in the grave how much she loved him, how much she's a loyal woman and all of that. She's going to wear black, mourning, and she doesn't want to have anything to do with living. She's going to close herself in the 4 walls. So we understand that she's lost her husband, but that's really how much we understand in the beginning. If you want to do a private moment about what would she be doing on top of that, on top of her having conversations with Luca, the servant. Okay, question, what would she be doing in that period of time when this play takes place? That's where the personal story of you as the actor and your roots and your background and your people from your life come into play. I, as a woman from Romania, from a small village, I was raised by my grandparents from a very early age. I was 3 months old when my grandparents started to take care of me and raise me. Due to my mom and my dad having, my dad's a priest, so he was working as a priest. He was working on a church that was given to them during the communists, that was, during the Ceausescu regime, which the church and the house that they lived was high up on a hill. There was bad transportation, so it was much more difficult for them to deal with a newborn than it was for my grandparents, who were living in a different village, but there was the main road, main street that was running through the village. So I was raised by my grandparents. My grandmother she was everything to me, and so was my grandfather. And I remembered, as I was trying to think of what private moment can I do for Elena, the character, but what private moment can I do that would actually inform me as an actress. And I thought of taking a bath. I thought of the whole ritual of taking a bath at that time in Romania, when there was no running water, there was no heating, everything was, wood stove, and the water had to be warmed up on the stove, and then you would have a basin, a covata, and all of those specific details came back into my memory of how much of a hard work my grandma used to have to go through to do that once a week or twice a week bath time that was happening. And it just occurred to me, why don't I do something that is personal to me, which is going to bring all the memories and all the details of my childhood, and give that to Elena now on stage of the Actor Studio, knowing that that is the most scary and frightening thing that I was going to do, because that requires of you to bear it. That requires of you to be naked, not only emotionally, but physically. And here's another element that is very important. If I were to have done this when I was in my 20s, I used to feel so much more comfortable with my body. I was young, not to say that you shouldn't be comfortable with your body when you're older, but I'm speaking for myself. But as I got older, this happened when I was in my 40s. It was something that was going to be uncomfortable, and it was going to scare me so badly. And that's when I knew that I had to do it. If you see another actress doing the same character, and she's deciding to do the same private moment for this character, but she's in her 20s and she doesn't have a insecurity about the way that she looks, and she decides to do the taking a bath as a private moment, is not as powerful as it is for somebody like me who wasn't like really comfortable about showing off my body. So I decided to go for it. When there's fear and there's a sense of, oh my God, this is going to be so scary, that's when you have to do it. Of course, always being considerate for being kind to yourself and being kind to other people. I always say that because it's not about doing something that's so out of the ordinary and so uncomfortable for you, and in the process you're hurting yourself or you're hurting other people. No, you always have to keep that in mind. You have to be kind to yourself. You have to be kind to other people in doing this experiment, doing these exploratory moments. So I remember I was going to session that day. And I hadn't really rehearsed in my previous rehearsals how I was actually going to do it. And I knew that even if I was going to rehearse it, it was going to change everything when people are going to be there watching you. So I remember getting to the Actor Studio, the original Actor Studio, and I'll speak about the school, but getting to the Actor Studio, and I said to my partner that I was scheduled to do the scene with, I just said to him, because I wanted to surprise him too. I wanted it to be a surprise for the other actor. So this is another thing that's very important, which I think most of the actors are afraid to do because they think that they have to be so polite to the other actors that they have to tell them everything in advance. If you're going to be polite to the other actors and telling them exactly what you're going to do and not surprising them, you're not doing them a favor. So surprising the other actors means that you're actually doing them a favor, because you're going to snap them out of what they thought the scene was going to be like, and you're going to help them be in the moment. So being a little bit impolite by surprising them and not telling them everything is actually of benefit to them as much as it is to you, because then you don't know what their response is going to be being surprised. They're going to give you something that you're not going to be expecting. So I just said to my partner, he asked me, so how do you want to start this when the other people come in to watch the session? And I just said, do you mind if you give me like about 5 to 10 minutes before you come in? And he says, okay, that's fine. Okay, well, what time should I come in? I said, just about between 5 and 10 minutes. You don't have to tell me because I wanted him to surprise me too. But I didn't tell him what I was going to do, which was going to be the private moment, the taking of the bath. So I remember I was at the actor studio and I found this prop, which was this basin made of aluminum, metal, gray metal, but it wasn't very high. It was probably going to maybe my knees, not even like below my knees. And as I put it on stage, I went back downstairs to get from the faucet to get the warm water that I was carrying up the stairs, trying to hide it from the people. They were already there, ready to come up. And I was carrying it up the stairs and I put it in the basin. And I said to myself, I'm not going to wait for the session to begin. I'm not going to wait for the moderator to come up and sit in the usual front row where the moderators, I don't know who that was. I think it was Estelle Parsons, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was Estelle Parsons. She was the actress who played in Bonnie and Clyde, directed by Arthur Penn. And I think she was nominated for Best Supporting Actress and got the Oscar for that. But she's done so much work. She's like in her 80s, I believe now, and she's still working all the time. She also, more recently, she played the mother in the show, situation comedy sitcom on television, Roseanne. I don't know if you guys know it, but then she's done a lot of Broadways. So I think it was Estelle Parsons. And I said, I'm not going to wait until the people come up and Estelle Parsons comes up to say, okay, we are ready for this to begin. I'm going to allow the bath to take place as if you were the moment before. So we're talking about the private moment. We're talking about surprising your character, your partner, actor. And then we're talking about the moment before. Most people think that when you begin to work as an actor, there's like action. I'm going into the scene. But as soon as you know that there's an action being called and a stage session being started when the moderator says, okay, now we're ready, I think hearing that shifts your mindset, and it takes you out of being real and human like you were before the session or the action was given, and you go to a different set of mind where you start to act, where acting is supposed to be about not acting. Acting is supposed to be about being. So I said, I don't want to be distracted by the fact that she's going to come up and she's going to tell me when to start. I'm going to imagine that this bath is the moment before. The moment before is always the moment that you have to come up with for yourself as an actor, for yourself, for the character, as personal to you, as a private moment that is going to bring you into the scene. As people, we come from somewhere. As people, we just don't appear on page 1 in our lives. We don't just appear on page 5 in our lives without having lived moments before people see us. For instance, if I'm going to meet some people for a drink, friends in my personal life, I come from somewhere. I come from having done this podcast or this Instagram live. I don't show up at the restaurant where I'm supposed to meet them. So you have to create the same moment before for the actor, for the character. So thank God that I was thinking, in order for me not to be so nervous and not to have that, I'm going to have to act now because people are coming in, I started to actually get ready to take the bath as people were walking in to watch the session. I did it in a way that was artistic. I wasn't, oh my God, let me be frontal and just show myself all the way. So the way that I set the basin with the water in it, which again, it was very low. So you have to remember, like, they could see me from my knees up. and it wasn't very wide. It wasn't like I could hide and cover myself with water. It was mostly, I was very visible. It was very visible that I was there. So as soon as I heard that they were walking up the stairs, I knew that they were getting ready to come in. And I said, okay, now it's time for you to just get ready to take the bath. And I remember like taking my clothes off and starting to take the clothes off. And at the same time, hearing the people coming up the stairs of the actor studio, I could hear the sounds. People are talking. You know how it is when you go to see something, people talk amongst them. But then as soon as they opened the door and they saw me, that I was already in the scene, I already started. I wasn't just waiting for them to come up. There was this quiet shift. As they were coming in, they stopped talking. And I then thought to myself, oh my God, what am I doing? This is going to be so bad. They're probably shocked. They're probably going to tell me to stop doing what I'm doing. Am I allowed to do this? I don't even know. This was before all of the restrictions and all of the, you have to let them know ahead of time. What are you going to do? Are you going to take something off? It was before the intimacy coaches on sets were required, where everything is now being choreographed, which I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but this was prior to that. But still in my mind, the way that we tend to think is, oh my God, what am I putting them through? Here I am, my body is not the same way that it was when I was in my 20s. There's some things moving around that shouldn't be moving around, and there's some things that are not moving around that should be moving around. That's the best way that I can describe it without going too much into details. And to calm my mind and to calm myself and to not hear them come in, because that was going to change my behavior, and I was going to probably just stop doing the private moment. This song came into my mind. The song is a Romanian song, Frumoasă-i vecina noastră, for those who are Romanian people and know it. And I'm not sure if I heard that on television, but I heard that so many times in my life. I don't know why that came into my mind. Maybe it just came into my mind because I'm not a singer. I don't know a lot of songs. And this is a fourth thing that I let myself try. I'm not a singer. I have the worst voice. I try to sing something, it turns into like one melody, a Romanian melody. Like I cannot hear. That's why I have an accent when I speak English after having been here for so many years, because I don't have a musical ear, as they say. And I heard myself singing, Frumoasă-i vecina noastră, scoate capul pe fereastră, să văd chip frumos, drag și luminos. Au, inima mea, ce frumoasă-i, na-na-na, că eu cât trăiesc, tot am să iubesc. Frumoasă-i vecina noastră, scoate capul pe fereastră, să văd chip frumos, drag și luminos. Au, inima mea, ce frumoasă-i dragostea, că eu cât trăiesc, tot am să iubesc. Frumoasă-i vecina noastră, scoate capul pe fereastră, să văd chip frumos, drag și luminos. So I kept doing it and I kept doing it. And the more I did it, the more courage I got. I was singing it louder. The louder I got, the worse it was. The louder I got, because we tend to, for those of us who don't have a singing voice, we tend to sing very softly because we don't want to let out that we don't have a voice. So we're like, frumoasă-i vecina noastră, scoate capul pe fereastră, să văd chip frumos. So we do it that way because we don't want to let the audience know that we don't have a voice. But I gave myself the permission to be wrong in the way that I sang it. And the more I gave myself permission to do that, and I sang it louder and worse, and it got worse and worse. The fears of my physically being naked in front of people completely disappeared. So I occupied my mind with focusing on the song and going with the song over and over again as loud as I could. And the other fear of showing my body in my 40s was not of importance, because if you occupy your mind with something, singing in my case, then you don't have time, the mind doesn't have time to go to the other thing that you're dealing with. That's why the concentration is so necessary for actors. To create anything, you have to concentrate on something that so demands your attention, and that will help you get through the tension in your body, that will help you get through the tension in your mind. It will just dissipate it. It will just take it down. And I found myself doing the bath and washing myself. And I remember I even stood up after I was completely physically naked and now emotionally vulnerable, because I already showed everybody that I don't know how to sing and I sing so badly. I had a moment of awareness where there was such a silent feel in the whole theater that felt so good. I just felt like I did it. I did it because I wasn't paying attention to the audience. I wasn't paying attention to playing out to them. I wasn't paying attention to trying to be entertaining for them. I wasn't trying to show them that I'm enough. I was concentrated on this private moment that I gave myself to concentrate on for me and for the character, that had all those elements in it that I just talked about. I washed myself. I remember washing myself, like really washing myself the way that I do, not in a nice way that we see on some of the movies that we watch, where it's like even the washing is like so sensual. No, that's not the way that one washes oneself, especially for Elena, who maybe does this once a week because there's no running water. So you don't have the comfort of having a shower to go into and just turn on the shower and take a shower. So when you do scrub, you really scrub. You really have to go to all the places and you have to actually do the whole thing. You have to do it. You have to do it. And I remember I got done with that. I got up. So as I got up from where I was sitting in the basin, where they were seeing me from here up, I got up and it was visible to all there that I was actually, I didn't have anything on. And it comes to me right now as I just recalled all these details in trying to explain to you what it was. And I had towel. I had brought with me a towel because even the significance of an object is another element that's of such importance. There's nowhere in the play where Chekhov talks about significant objects for the character, but I wanted to bring something from home, which was actually back from Romania, a towel, this traditional embroidered towel from my grandmother's house that I had brought when I was there on my last vacation from New York. It was long after she had passed. My grandfather was still alive. So I had brought some things that I was really very, they were significant for me. So I decided to take that towel, prosop, with me to use it. And as I got up, I got out from the knee-high water, not even, maybe like between like calves high water. And I started to dry myself. I was probably diagonally facing the audience. But then at one point, I just said to myself, don't hide, don't hide. And I just turned. I really was drying myself. I was drying myself and I was drying myself, my back, my butt, everything, my breast, everything. I just remember all the things on my body wiggling, moving, and I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. I just did that. And before that thought finished in my mind, there was a knock. Smirnov, the guy who played Smirnov, was knocking on the door. Madame Popova, and Luca came on, and they both saw me. And they were shocked because, like I said, I didn't tell them that I was going to do that private moment. When they came in, everybody started laughing. So the comedy, they started laughing because I was hurrying now. I was trying to hide, and all I had to hide was this towel that I talked about, this significant object to me. And I was trying to hide behind it, but it was very narrow and long. And I was still trying to hide my parts of the body that I was trying to not let them see. As I was doing that, the audience was able to see me. So the audience was seeing the parts that I was trying to hide from them as they were coming on stage. And the funny thing is that the play is a comedy. And I would have never found out that comedic moment if we were just to begin the play in the way that it was written. When you try to work to make something funny in the lines, it's not going to be funny. If you're working to make something funny as an actor, oh, I'm going to be funny, it's going to turn out to be completely the opposite. It's going to be horrible. And people were laughing hysterically. And then when I went back to read about Chekhov and the physical comedy in all of his plays, we realized that we had found the physical comedy in this beginning moment of the play without even thinking about, let's find out how to be funny in the beginning and make people laugh. And it felt so good. We went on with the scene. I think it went okay, because once you enter into the scene from something that was so relevant and was so unexpected that you put yourself through and you give yourself that task of doing, that it surprises you, but it also gives you an entry into the script. You're coming from somewhere. I know. Yeah. Okay. Oh, that was, yeah. I'm just recalling it right now. Even now, in describing it to you, I'm still having a little bit of a doubt in my mind as I'm going, should I have explained that? Is that too much for the people watching? Or should I have just kept that to myself? But I don't want to be selfish and keep it. I understand that this work is sacred and some of the people don't want to share this work with anybody, but at the same time, it's being shared when you pay for it. So if you're sharing it when you are making money of it, then it's kind of hypocritical to say, I don't want to share it when you're not being paid for it. That was my private moment that had to do with the character, but it had to do also with what I needed to do for myself to overcome fear of showing myself in that way. And it involved singing a song as loud as I could, overcoming the fear of singing. It involved, I catch myself. It's okay if I do it once and then I catch myself. It involved surprising the other actors by telling them, come on after 5 minutes after I'm on, or whatever the time was. And it involved concentrating on something that was so specific, which for me was the singing the song and going with the song, to take me away from the mind telling me you're giving yourself away, you're showing your nakedness, and people are going to be disgusted by it, or they're going to feel like something's wrong with you that you're doing that at your age. I think that if I were to direct this play, I would actually do a private moment for Elena and I would add it on. I remember that some of the comments, I think, were very positive. Majority of the comments were very positive. I was very surprised by the women who came up to me to thank me for having the courage to do that. And they were really, really sincere in saying that that was such a revelatory expression of who I was that they had never seen. They had seen me do a lot of things on stage, but they never saw me be so vulnerable. And they thanked me for doing it, because women know that, we have so many society expectations to look a certain way as we get older. And it's not always easy to keep up with that. And then when you do it, it just feels like you're doing it to overcome these fears that you have of yourself, to get to a place where you know that you are worthy no matter the age, because you are a human being. It doesn't matter, we all age. And to see them be so thankful that I did it. The man, I remember there was one member, I'm not gonna name names, but he was like, oh my God, you were drying yourself with the towel and everything was jiggling, everything was wiggling, jiggling, wiggling, jiggling, wiggling, jiggling. I was like, oh my God, I know, I felt it. But it was funny. They were laughing. They thought it was funny. It was so crazy. Now I'm going back to, because now another thought came into my mind. There's a movie that's out on Hulu. I want to watch it. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but talk about bearing, your physical instrument as an actor. Our instruments are who we are, the selves, the physical, the mental, emotional, soul, heart, mind, everything. There's a movie with Emma Thompson. I forget the name of it, but there was an article in the New York Times and she talks about bearing it all. And I've only seen trailers of it. And she talks about the fact that she went at her age. So I'm curious to see how that movie is. I'm sure it's going to be amazing, because every time an actress is going beyond their comfort zone, there's got to be something spectacular and extraordinary about that. So the movie, I'm sure, is going to be great. It's getting great reviews, and it is a comedy. So talking about comedy from Chekhov to Emma Thompson in her new movie, I'll see it and maybe I'll talk about it in the next episode. So to go back to what I was going to say, the difference between the actor studio, this is the original actor studio, the one place in the world. And then what happened with James Lipton, he was around the actor studio, I don't know in what capacity, before he became the visionary of the fact that he understood the actor studio name to be of such importance that a school of acting should be opened with the name of the actor studio. And he was such a visionary. He knew that people are going to not only want to be part of this program, the actor studio MFA program. He knew that people are going to want to be associated with this 3-year program, for which, of course, you have to pay. That's what I'm talking about. When I say some people don't want to share their work because it's sacred and it should stay within the closed doors of the actor studio, and I understand that, but then they share it in the 3-year program for students who pay for it, and they pay for it a lot of money. So that's why I kind of disagree, because I think the work should be shared if it helps people to be unafraid, not just actors, but everybody, to be unafraid to try something that's not comfortable in their lives. Not necessarily that you have to take your clothes off and do a private moment of taking a bath. That's not what I mean. But I don't know, you're afraid of singing, sing at the top of your lungs and see what that gives you. I think that for as long as somebody else can be inspired by it, it should be shared. So he came up with a program, and then his vision was so ahead of anybody else, because he knew that non-actors, that any people who are going to be watching these exploratory experiments are going to be engaged for that same reason that I just mentioned, because they're going to maybe learn from or identify with the fears and the struggles that actors have to reveal as themselves first, to then portray characters who have flaws. The characters, as we people, have flaws. So he decided to turn it into a TV show. And that's when Inside the Actor Studio with James Lipton came to be. It won so many Emmys, and it was awarded with every award that you can think of, because the audiences were not just people interested in acting, but the audiences were people of any profession who were identifying with what the actors on his show were talking about in expressing how, as an actor, you have to explore who you are and you have to identify so many parts of yourself that maybe in everyday life we don't have to. But as an actor, you have to do that. The same way that I described how the personal childhood and memories and my grandmother and taking a bath was being brought to the character, informed who the character was, and it gave people who watched a personal understanding of who Elena was, because I brought my personal to it. I brought my personal story to it. That's the difference between the actor studio. The actor studio is still separate from the school. It has the same name, but if you are accepted to go to the 3-year program, the same one that I went to, and that's where I went to school with Bradley Cooper. That doesn't mean that when you graduate, you become a member of the original actor studio. You have to audition to become a member of the original actor studio. There's a lot of people who went to the 3-year program and they never made it as members. They never got accepted. They auditioned and they did not get accepted. They only accept a couple of people a year. And I did. I tried once and I was accepted. And they say that there are so many people who have tried, famous names who have tried so many times before they got in. So in advance of the 75-year anniversary, which is going to happen next year, 2000. No, it's actually this year. They're celebrating it this year because it's 1947 to 2022. So it's already 75 years. Am I correct? Yeah. I wanted to do this episode to celebrate 75 years of the Actor Studio and 100 years of Stanislavski and his system, and him bringing the system with his actors from the Moscow Art Theater in America in the 1920s. I hope you guys have learned. No, I shouldn't say that because I feel like I'm arrogant when I say that. I don't hope you've learned because I'm not here to teach anybody. I hope my sharing of my experiences can inspire you. But I am so grateful that I'm able to do this. I have to do it. I can't shut up. If I shut up, then I'm going to drive my family crazy. And they're not so much into my interest. This is such a reveal, but also relief for me. Please share this video if you like it. Go to my Facebook, Mihaela M. Mihud, and go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. That would be so helpful as I'm trying to, like I said, revive it and produce more content about experiences from Romania and America. Have a wonderful week. Thank you. Kisses.